Before I do any kind of natal chart reading or transit report, I always give a foundation for where my understanding of the cycles even comes from. And it's all based on the most simple elements: fire, earth, air, and water. And so to begin, I would like to go into a little more depth about what I mean by fire, earth, air, and water. And then I'll talk about how those elements behave. Once we understand the elements and how they behave, we can fit them into the 12 parts of the zodiac that we know as our astrology signs. So to begin, we'll talk about fire. And fire is the element of inspiration. It's the element of passion. It's the element that begins things. It's the element that continues us to push forward through obstacles. And it's the element that really lights the fire that keeps us going. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel that we keep searching for. And so whenever we're talking about fire, we're going to be talking about that kind of energy. Whenever we talk about earth in astrology, we're going to be talking about tangible reality. Anything that could be sensed with the 5 senses. So you can taste it, you can touch it, you can smell it, you can grow it, you can hold it in your hands. And so it's literal things. We're not talking about mythical things. They're always going to be things you can prove, things you can measure and quantify. Air are things that we know are real, but are difficult to touch. So something like a sound, you can hear what I'm saying right now, and you're creating ideas in your head about what I'm saying. Those things are real, but it's really difficult for you to actually grab them out of the air. And air, as we know, we can breathe it. We know that we need it to survive. It enters our lungs and it exits our lungs, but it's sort of in that untouchable realm. Whenever we talk about air, we're talking about the way we communicate with others, things that we learn. Reading is a form of air. Thoughts, ideas, opinions, taste, all of those things that are subjective to the personality, like what they like about music or things like that. Our water, the water element, is going to be talking about our emotions. It's all the things that we feel, all of our experiences based on a collection of sensations. And so when we talk about water, we're not only talking about emotion, but we're talking about the wisdom that comes from experiences. We're going into a little bit more spirit, more faith. Water is very transitional. It can transition from a solid to a liquid to a gas. And so water is oftentimes a transitional element in when we're talking about the 4 elements. And so to take these 4 elements, there are specifically 3 different ways these elements can behave on the earth. The first way the elements can behave is in a cardinal way. And cardinal is going to be, I like to talk about the three behaviors by taking cars on the freeway. The 3 behaviors are cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal generally starts things, initiates things. Fixed sustains things. And mutable changes things. So if we take these cars on the freeway, let's say they're driving through San Diego and they're coming up against a huge traffic jam. Let's have a cardinal car. The cardinal car is going to see the traffic jam and they're going to know that they want to get to point B, which is through that obstacle. So they have a few different ways of getting through the obstacle. And they're going to initiate based on what element they are. So let's say we have cardinal fire. This cardinal fire is going to use the passion they feel inside of them to pull onto the shoulder, to break down the cones maybe. They're going to get really, really angry perhaps, or just nothing will stop them. And so you might see behavior that's a little bit extreme, a little bit confrontational, because their passion will not stop them, will not allow them to stop by that obstacle. Now, the cardinal water person may use a lot of emotion to get through the obstacle. Let's say they come up against a police officer blocking the road. They may begin crying and say, "You don't understand, officer, my daughter's in the hospital, I have to get there, I've got, a living heart in my wallet, I need to get it to the," so they have some kind of sob story that helps them to get through the obstacles. Sometimes there can be emotional manipulation even to get through that obstacle. But in any case, they feel it's so important because of their emotional capacity, not so much the passion to get there, but the emotional reason they want to get there. The cardinal air person may use their mind. This may be a lawyer who's very adept at convincing people through their words that they need to get through an obstacle. So they may first justify it to themselves why they're entitled to get through that obstacle. They'll come up to the police officer, "Well, I'm a very important person, I need to get to court, and this is blah, 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 blah." And so they use their powers of thought to work themselves through obstacles. And then the cardinal earth person, this is the person that just busts through the barriers, this is the person that will cut the tree branch out and move it out of the road, or they break down the cones, or they just make their own road, they will move the earth to get to where they need to go, or create a bridge even. That's a more constructive way. They'll build a bridge. So that's kind of the cardinal disposition. Their point is to get through obstacles and to initiate that motion. Now, a fixed disposition for these elements acts completely different. Their goal is still to get to point B, but the way they get there is through waiting, enduring, sustaining, persisting with patience. And so this fixed person, depending on what element they're exhibiting, let's say they're the element of fire. A fixed fire person knows that at some point they will get to point B because all of their life is dedicated to getting there, and that's not going to change. And so they may, while they're waiting in traffic, even though when they see the obstacle, they're going to look at their watch and be like, "Well, how long is this going to take?" They're going to continue to write affirmations, "I will make it through this obstacle, like I can endure, I will make it, I will wait, and as long as it takes, no matter what." The cardinal air person, they may communicate while they're sitting in traffic. They may sit and, not the cardinal, the fixed air person. They may say, "Well, while I'm waiting here, maybe I'll listen to some music, maybe I'll call my friend on the phone, chat with my mom for a while, maybe I'll read a book, listen to a book on tape while I'm passing the time." And so they're going to entertain their minds and while they're waiting for that obstacle, for the traffic jam to clear. The cardinal fixed water person, the fixed water person may go into deep spirituality. They may go into meditation. They could go into depression while they're sitting and waiting for the obstacles of their life to clear. There's a lot of different options for the fixed water person, but oftentimes they go into deep contemplation about their situation, about what this obstacle even means for them, and they can actually have breakthroughs while they're waiting for the traffic to clear. Now, the mutable car is completely different in that they may change their point B altogether. So they see the traffic jam up front, and they're going to immediately make plans to get around the obstacle in a different way. They're not so concerned with staying on that freeway. So the fixed fire person may just change their passion altogether. They may decide, "Well, I wanted to stop in Anaheim anyway. There's a bookstore I was interested in, or there's a concert that I was going to miss, so I'll just change my plans and go there." And so they just change where their excuse me. They just change where their passion lies, or they allow new passions to lead them and maybe even enforce and teach them while they're on their way to point B. So they just can be They adapt, exactly. The mutable Earth person will look at their GPS and route a new path. And so maybe instead of taking the 95 freeway, they exit on the 10 and they take the 215 and da 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 da. And they make their way around the obstacle by making a new plan. So they use the Earth and the Earth's paths to get around obstacles. Sometimes this takes them a lot longer to get to point B, longer than if they'd stayed in the obstacle. Sometimes they end up getting lost and they have to re-navigate, but they're gonna adapt the Earth, their plan to the Earth. A mutable air person may decide that they just want to stop and visit a friend. They're gonna be social, they're gonna visit their family. Like, they're going to ask their friend, maybe, is there another way around this obstacle? Can I stop and get some coffee with you while I'm waiting for this obstacle? And so that's a kind of a mutable, maybe they're gonna watch a movie and, whatever. And then finally, the mutable water person is different altogether. The mutable water person is gonna see the obstacle as a sign from the universe that they weren't meant to get to point B in the first place. And so they'll go ahead and exit the freeway. When the light turns green to turn left, they turn left, and they just follow their intuition all through the town. Maybe instead of getting to point B, they make it to Venice Beach just in time for the sunset. And they decide that the universe wanted them to see that sunset that day, and that was what was in their true plan. And their will to get to point B was never very important anyway. And so that's kind of a mutable water. When you take those 4 elements and you take the 3 dispositions and you multiply them together, you get 12. And these 12 pieces make up the 12 houses of the natal chart. The 12 houses of the natal chart simply are the cycles by which the elements move from cardinal, fixed, and mutable, and then cardinal, fixed, and mutable, cardinal, fixed, and mutable, through very orderly elemental motion, fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water. And by doing this and basing our center on the earth experience and the elements of the earth, we end up with a very grounded experience of the zodiac. In fact, our zodiac, for me, is based on the experiences that the earth has during the seasons of the year. So we think of Aries as the first sign of the zodiac. And Aries happens to be cardinal fire, and it occurs in the middle of March to April. And that is when all of the plants are beginning to burst from the earth, from out of their seed beds up through the soil, and they burst into the earth. And so it takes cardinal fire for that seed to come through the earth and come into life. And so we start the zodiac in the first house with Aries. And it progresses from there. So moving forward, I'll talk about how the 12 houses and the 12 signs of the zodiac relate to the elements and the dispositions.